You know, you haven't made it on YouTube until a dog rapist calls you a pussy.
Professional curious about pussy.
Speaking of people who don't know when to stop digging themselves into a hole, I figured we'd play Mr. Driller today. Mr. Driller is a 1999 PS1 arcade port brought to us by Namco. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant Namco! Whatever the shit that is. Namco seemingly wanted this to be the third entry in their Dig Dug series, having it star Suzumi Hori, the son of Dig Dug's protagonist Taizo Hori, and Baraduk protagonist Mizuyo Kissy Toby. I have no idea if I pronounced those names right. You know, playing this game so much as a kid, I had no idea that it was so rich in lore. But seriously, I don't get why Namco would relate this character to two other characters who hadn't really been relevant for nearly a decade before this, but sure, whatever. Mr. Driller's town is being overrun by coloured blocks. Everybody is in a panic! Quick! Call Mr. Driller! I don't know why he's your go-to guy, given that his mother is some sort of space marine and his dad is way more experienced. Maybe they don't all live in the same town and Mr. Driller's the only one they could get on short notice. Go, Driller! Go! Oh, fuck off, Maya! You know, I kinda like this sign here because I had to do a double take because I swear it said commies instead of comics the first time around. The blocks are coming from deep underground. Drill as fast as you can. Wait, what the hell's happening here? This looks a little suggestive if you ask me. Anyway, apparently some dark version of these weird grimace-looking motherfuckers is behind it all. My guess is that he's Kirby. Fuck man, given how many weird connections Mr. Driller has to other franchises, I legitimately wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. So Mr. Driller is a rather cutesy arcade-style puzzle game that offers a rather simple but challenging experience. Basically, you have to drill down, avoiding being crushed along the way, and once you get deep enough, you have to avoid running out of oxygen. I do love that when you run out of oxygen, the cute protagonist of this game literally goes blue in the face, and then dies of oxygen starvation right before your eyes. Such a wonderful image for the kids. Anyway, you have to tunnel down to the centre of the earth on 2 lives and an air tank that runs out after a short amount of time. Whilst you can get more air for the tank, you seemingly can't get any more lives after the initial 2, so good luck with that. Weirdly enough, whenever he gets an air tank, he always says a word that sounds like Becky. I don't know, maybe Becky supplies the air tanks for free, provided that he shills them every time he picks one up. Depending on the level that you're playing, the blocks differ from being individual squares that can sometimes clump together, huge clumps, or a mix of both. The huge clumps are the easiest to get through because taking one out destroys a lot of the others, but this can change the entire landscape of the level and also trap you in an unfortunate situation. Alternatively, a lack of clumps can make the game take longer and thus result in you running out of oxygen. There are also these brown blocks that are extra tough. Not only do they require more hits to break open, but they also deplete around 20 oxygen once they're broken. You're ideally supposed to avoid these, though it might be necessary to break 1 or 2 if there's no alternative. That's basically all there is to this game, and I honestly appreciate the fact that such a simple concept can be such fun. I remember playing this game when I was around 7 years old and I loved it back then. Whilst I still have fun playing this, I have to admit that I see more room for improvement now that I'm a bit older. At the time, people were complaining about its lack of content. It's kind of funny in retrospect after playing Tekken 7 and Soul Calibur 5. My personal beef with this game is that it could possibly do with some better difficulty progression. I legitimately couldn't finish all 5 levels and ended up quitting after around 2 hours of being booted back to the start screen. I honestly think that I could have beaten this thing if I had 3 lives at the beginning instead of 2, or at least got some sort of power up along the way. I also noticed that you get the same number of lives on the expert difficulty, where you have to clear 10 levels instead of 5 with only 2 lives. I did see how people do this, and yeah, I don't have the reflexes to pull that kind of shit off. Yeah, it's not exactly an epiphany to me that I am bad at this game. I can't really move too fast or I die, and as much as I like to think things through before doing them, the oxygen tank makes that practically impossible. Maybe if there were more than just 2 difficulties or modes, I think I could have done it on at least one of them, but no luck so far. I haven't even tried the survival or time attack mode because I highly doubt I could do either of those. As someone who kinda struggles with things due to multiple disabilities, I always like the idea that everyone who paid their £40 or £20, or whatever the shit they paid for this, gets an achievable challenge. Also, whilst we're talking money, I paid £27.63 for my copy. Yeah, for a PS1 game. The latest Mortal Kombat expansion is only just pricier than that. It's not really the game's fault, but this is quite a dear one if you want to get your hands on it. It's not that it sours my experience entirely, and I do kind of admire the fact that the game encourages you to keep going at it, even if it does feel a bit disingenuous after you've failed at it non-stop for 2 hours. Yeah, this is a well-made game, at least on a mechanical level, and its aesthetics are also quite nice. Graphically, it actually stands out. Its colourful nature is definitely charming, and I feel like its basic nature has made it stand the test of time. If somebody had shown me a screenshot of this and told me that it's a currently existing arcade game, or maybe a mobile game, I could buy it. The soundtrack is also really good, but I do find it to be a bit overbearing, especially on the menus. It just gets so loud. If you were playing this at like 3 AM and trying to get a cheeky game in, yeah, you are going to wake up the entire house when the kids start shouting in the background, and then that friggin' bass drops. There wasn't really any glaring issue that really stood out to me. I do like some of the more advanced touches, like Mr. Driller throwing himself out the way of blocks sometimes, though he is capable of throwing himself out the way of one falling block into the path of another falling block, and getting himself crushed like a prize idiot. I also looked a bit at the latest game, Drill Spirit, on Wikipedia, and it does suggest that they added a bit more to the formula, providing some more modes, possibly fixing my issues with the difficulty, and the game's stubbornness.
Might just take a look at that someday. Of course, I'll need a DS first, and the game, and a bunch of other shit. So, won't be anytime soon, I'm afraid.
I wasn't able to beat the game, as established, but a few people who were much better at the game than I have managed to do it, so I can leave you with the ending of Mr. Driller's journey.
This episode of Curiosity's Sake was brought to you by Becky's Oxygen Tanks. Becky's Oxygen Tanks, because remember, you aren't wasting air if you're using it to praise Becky's name.
Welche neugierige Bärbchen.